Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chakras and Cusswords podcast. I'm Catherine, the host, and today we have a special podcast. I have two guests on. I have Gary Jordan and Lynda-Ross Vega, and they are going to be talking about their new book of basically creating a perception and unlocking your perception. So this is kind of interesting and very new, where I haven't really dived into this concept of a full unlockment of your perception. Like that kind of sounds like really deep. so so welcome. Please introduce yourselves and let the listeners know about you guys.
Well, thanks for having us on, Catherine. So my name is Lynda-Ross Vega, and Lynda-Ross is my first name. Gary and I have a company called Vega Behavioral Consulting. We've been working together what we do is coach. For the company, we do coaching, and the basis of our coaching is a styles theory, perceptual style theory, which the book is about. So we do mentoring, career guidance. We actually teach people to use perceptual style theory in their own businesses. So we've had a lot of fun over the years.
That's awesome. Gary, introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you.
You bet. My claim to fame is that I'm a clinical psychologist, and started off in private practice, and got tired of. I asked the question, "Why is I'm sick and tired of dealing with all these depressed people?" And my joke is I went into consulting in corporations and discovered why everybody was depressed. They didn't like what they were doing.
Yeah.
So that my whole focus in my career has been, how do you figure out what it is that you do well and figure out a way to do more of that in your life and discover the things that are not natural to who you are and do less of that in your life. And that's the approach that I have taken, and that's what hooked Lynda-Ross and I up together, was the two of those things coming together in a kind of a unique sort of way. Me out of the professional world, being disillusioned with the private practice model, and meeting Lynda-Ross in the corporate world and discovering someone who we kind of like, I lean towards business and she leaned towards psychology, and the two of us hooked up together.
It did.
Yeah. So you guys both had this
Yeah,
collaboration.
we had separate careers. I was actually, my career was in corporate America, was related to technology development and installation of technology, specifically in the banking industry. And over the years, I began to specialize in coming in and helping projects that were off track, that were in trouble. And so I happened to work on a particular project that was really large. It was honestly the largest I'd ever done. There were over 1,000 people on the project alone. And it was, it's a hotbed when you've got that many human beings, and things aren't getting done. There's lots to go around. So I actually was introduced to Gary and hired him to come in and be the support, the emotional and behavioral support for the team. I was fascinated with style theories. How do you learn what people do best and then match them to those tasks? Because if you match people with the gifts that they're bringing, then what happens is things just very, I would say, with little guidance, get back on track, because people are doing what they enjoy. Quality improves, timeliness improves. So I had kind of, touched on many different kinds of tools to help with that, and I hired Gary, and he came in, and we set him up in an office off the other side of campus, so nobody went in and knew who was talking to him. And then he and I would get together every couple of weeks, and he'd give me trends of what he was seeing about what the stress factors seemed to be on the project, etc. From that, we bonded, and then learned that he had started working on a styles theory as part of his PhD dissertation. So we started working on that together, and we both left. I left corporate America in '94, and we formed the company then. And so there we are, and here we are.
Yeah.
And I know we're here to talk about the perception of, unlocking your perception. I know we're here to talk about the book, but can we talk a little bit about the company? Because like the two of you guys forming a company together is a big collaboration and a big style of unity. Like, how did these two individuals decide to like go into something, and basically, because it sounds like you guys have been in business together for a while.
We have, yeah. I think that what happened was that while I was doing the emotional support for this huge project with Lynda-Ross, and we got to know each other, and I discovered that sometimes it's a hard sell with corporate management to understand that to match people to what they do well. And Lynda-Ross was very, very receptive to it. And I thought, well, here's I can't tell you the step by step, but we bonded immediately around that. And she said, hey, can you use this theory to figure out who needs to be where? And that's a simplistic way of saying it. And I said, boy, yeah, let's try that. And what we discovered was that it worked. So that when we knew what people were supposed to be doing and we knew what their perceptual style was, in very broad strokes, we could begin to talk about where they would thrive and where they would help the project move forward rather than to block the project. And that was the basis of the company that we put together when she left.
Along the way,
when we both left that one particular
3 years, 3-4 years
organization.
that we were doing that
Right.
work. And in that time, our families got together. I really enjoyed Gary's family, vice versa. My husband and Gary hit it off really well. So when we were looking for what should we do next, it was sort of a natural to form the company together. We had the support of our families. Everybody was interested in what we were doing. It sounded like it was possible. And so I think it was the combination of a shared interest and great friendship that actually was the foundation for putting the company together, and our families. I mean, we've had Thanksgiving together every year for 30-some years. I mean, it's been, so yeah.
Right. So definitely a friendship, a business partnership, and an alliance. Do you guys, I don't know if you guys are into astrology, do you guys know your zodiac signs, just out of curiosity?
Yeah,
I'm Sagittarius.
Okay. Lynda-Ross, do you know yours? Huh? Oh, okay, nice. Water and fire. Okay, I love that. So after the business started like getting kind of like going and you became aligned in your work, what was it? Because like you saw a lot of people were struggling in like just the everyday kind of mental state of being in like corporations or on this hamster wheel of, I guess people label it, the matrix, having to clock in and working for man, it's like, how did you guys like find the area where you can see what it is that other people should be in? Because I think sometimes a lot of us like we're in our work area or we're in our job, and maybe at the time that we got into that job it just felt so right and it felt like that was our
I think what we do
base for being there, and then maybe somehow with corporations or the corporate it's turned into something that it isn't. So
because that's
how
the
do you
common
guys
thing
help
we
people
found
find
for most people
what it is that they
is
should
that
be in?
people tend to be unaware of what they're naturally good at. Then the reason they are is they assume that everybody is too, so they don't think it's anything special, right? And if you go through, when you get to adulthood, you've had all sorts of feedback about what you don't do well and what you should learn to do better. It's the way our report card systems work in schools. It's, the way we go through high school and college. It's what employee evaluations do. They tell you what you're not doing well, and tend to not spend a lot of focus on what you do really well. So we find that most people are unaware of what they are naturally talented at doing, okay? And that's the place to start. And then I think, Gary, it would be really cool to talk a little bit about where we think those strengths come from.
Right. I got interested in styles theory. There's a lot of them out there, and there's a long history to styles theory. It goes all the way back to Plato, if you want to get specific and technical about the whole process. But so I studied those throughout my graduate career, and was struck by that it always seemed like there was something missing for me. And it wasn't that what they were describing wasn't accurate. It was that it missed some pieces for the way that I saw things. And I started seeing groupings and clusters of traits that I thought that went together. And so my dissertation was a kind of a proof of the idea that what I saw 6 different groupings. And I did an initial proof that these 6 groupings did work together and were different from each other. Initially, we saw that the differences were caused, or thought these differences were caused by cognition, the way people thought, and their intellect. But together, we kept things. We honed and honed, and we finally came down to what we really believe is going on is it's perception. It's how you take in the data, how you take in data through your 5 senses, and then make meaning out of that data through your perceptual processes in your brain, which is not actually cognition; it's below that level. So that, and what we state is that there is a filter. Our perception is a filter, and that there are 6 different filters that people have, or I should say it differently. There are 6 different filters, and everybody has one. And so that they filter information in and perceive it according to the way that their filter works. And those filters group into 6 natural. I'm repeating myself here. Those filters group into 6 groups, 6 different ways or styles that we call them.
Very unique
Can I ask
perceptual
what are the 6
experience
styles
on how they see the world and how they make meaning in there. And it's interesting, your natural strengths are very much aligned with how you see the world. Because think of it, you see things, the things that you see and the meaning that you make, the skills that go with that are going to be easier for you because you see them. It's part of who you are. It's part of how you make meaning. And so by understanding how your perception works, you can unlock how the natural skills that you have. And there are so many skills that go with each style that it'll take you a lifetime to do them all. So it's not like we have limits or anything. It's that there's so much to explore, and usually, back to your question about how we get into jobs and then we find we don't like them, is that usually it's because we've been trying to acquire skills that are different than our natural set, and maybe trying to do those mimicking someone who's got a totally different perceptual style than we do. It's why one size fits all never works. A book works really well for one person, and then you read it and you go, it does nothing for me. And it's basically related to how we're making meaning and that style thing. So I got myself all excited and forgot where I was going with that.
Right. it kind of sounds like each individual has their own area of like perception of maybe even the same things. Like I could tell Gary something and he has a different perception of the way that I maybe see it, like that. I think that's really cool, especially like helping people understand that, especially like in the workforce, because I feel like, because I'm a nurse and I've been nursing for a long time, and I feel like there's so many like nurses leaving the profession, and you know, it could be for multiple reasons, and I still like think it's like one of my favorite professions. You know, when I hear stuff that people do, I still think like nursing is like one of the best professions, but I see like why people want to leave. I just don't understand how, you know, like the whole perception of how could you give up something that you worked so hard for, you know? So I guess it's just the perception of different events and views.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I was going to say nursing is an interesting, a great profession to talk about how our theory works, because there's lots of different types of nurses. It's all one profession, but you know an OR nurse, scrub nurse, has a very different task than someone who's a ward nurse or a floor nurse. Very different than an ER nurse. Very different than a nurse in an office. And we would say that the skills that required for an OR nurse are different than the ones that are required for an office nurse or a ward nurse, and so that and we would account for that because there's different perceptions. It's different ways of seeing things, and those different roles require different sets of skills and the ability to respond in different manners and different ways. Same thing would be true about different types of attorneys, different types of physicians, different types of managers.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Because I've done a little bit of everything, and then I've done ER nursing for about 7 to 8, 9 years, and then I just switched out of there and went to a different department. But that's what I mean. Like the profession has so many areas that you can go from. You know, that it allows you to move in different directions, which to me I think is amazing. But some people just, I don't know, they just put it with nursing as a whole.
Yes,
like,
it
I'm not
is.
gonna be able to get out of this department,
you would think, with
whatever.
a theory and
But,
a whole business built
talk
around the
about
theory that we would have written the book like ages
your
ago.
perception.
But
what
like
made
the
you
rest
guys
of the world,
decide to
we suddenly
write
had a lot of
book,
time on our
how
hands
did that
when the pandemic hit.
really come up?
And
Is this
so
your guys'
rather
first
than
book
being on the road and
together,
doing
or
things, we were meeting via Zoom every week, and we said, now's the time to write the darn book. Whenever we would give seminars or classes, people would say, do you have a book? And we'd go, yeah, we'll get to it. So we finally got to it, and enjoyed having actually it was a fun process to pull all of the work over the years and synthesize it into what we hope is a very coherent and easily read book. Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book? Like, what is I know it's unlocking the power of your perception and to claim that area, but what is that exactly? Like, what is unlocking the perception?
Well, that's really, I mean, the book really describes what we do as a company. So unlocking the power of your perception means helping you to discover what your perceptual style is. discovering what the natural skills that go with your particular perceptual style are, and then helping you begin to, the claiming part is beginning to, how do you begin to use those in a more intentional and meaningful way? Lynda-Ross mentioned earlier that oftentimes what we discover is people aren't aware of what their natural skills are, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the biggest is that because they're so easy for us, we don't think that they're valuable. And Lynda-Ross mentioned this earlier. And so we look at other people and other perceptual styles and try to learn how to do what doesn't come to us naturally. And that gets rewarded very highly in our society. I had to work real hard to get this. But what we're saying is that there's a whole broad range and a very large set of skills that you are naturally you have the natural potential
so
for.
The book is about
and we want to help you discover what those are and to begin to use them in your life. Because it's when you're doing that you begin to feel the natural, what do I want to say, satisfaction that comes from doing what you do best.
Do you think do you think now that maybe people have so many different perceptions of different things that it's because I feel like a lot of people now, and I don't know if it's related to the advancements of technology and social media and all this networking that's so easily at our fingertips.
I think
that
plays a part. It does play a part because there's a piece of us of human beings
with other people's perceptions and other people's
bias.
views that it makes them hard to actually acknowledge or filter out what
and pay more attention to things that are negative than things that are positive. And that's true about ourselves. I mean, this is something that happens to all human beings. It's part of our brains. It's part of our evolution. I mean, think back in the early, centuries ago, being aware of what was negative, your life depended on it, right? So rather, to eat or be eaten. But today it's evolved more that we feel a slight or we feel a reprimand or a criticism more critically than we do taking it, putting it in perspective of what we do well. So if we have a natural tendency to do that, and then you're bombarded by social media or media in general, or just, negative news gets the most play because it follows into that, it's easy to fall into a slump where you go, this person is doing this and this, and I'm not. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I need to go fix this, or this, right? And so what we think is with perceptual style and learning how you perceive and learning to value your own strengths, it actually shields you somewhat from succumbing to that negativity bias, because you understand, when we say you stand in your strengths, you're confident in how you feel about it and what it means, and it's easier. You don't feel competitive with the other person who sees it differently as much as you go, oh, that's interesting. They see it differently. So while perceptual style in our book is very, very helpful for self-discovery and that, there's real gold in understanding that there are 6 different ways of seeing something. And so that person that you think is not agreeing with you on purpose may just actually not see it the way you do. And it allows you to bring your communication to a different level to understand what you're each trying to say, even though you're using the same word. So it's got a lot of power in that. And we think it's a tonic to help the overwhelm of the world and to help people get recentered in who they are, and that they truly are enough, and they're more than they even know that they are, and then start using their talents intentionally instead of pushing them to the back and trying to imitate something else. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes when I talk to people about like their talents or like their creativity, it's it could look so different, right, for each individual, that sometimes like people are like, I don't even know what my creativity or like my talents are,
Mhm.
that it makes it hard for them.
Absolutely. Well, that's exactly what we're focused on, is because people do have a difficult time seeing it, and we have the business that we use helps people to identify what their style is, and then we also have a methodology to help people figure out, are they using the talents that come with their perceptual style, and to what extent are they using the strengths that they were naturally given. And because it is so hard, it's just like, I don't know how to put an analogy on it. It's so hard to see what you do well because you do it so well, and it comes so easily to you. So we're all about helping people to put a name, on the skills, what we call the natural skills that they have. It's very exciting. That's what we mean by unlocking the power of your perception, is using what comes to you naturally in a powerful and meaningful and impactful way.
So most of the time it comes so natural that you don't even really like see it.
Yeah, I can tell you a story. When I first started consulting to business organizations, I was focused in the one where I met Lynda-Ross, and I knew that if I was going to make a career out of it, I needed to move into other business organizations as well. And so I was, I'd had an in because I knew somebody, some people that worked within the organization I was working with, and I was thinking, so what can I go out there and market to other business organizations? And one of my very dear close friends said, well, you could market your assessment skills, Gary. And I literally said to him, no one's going to buy my assessment skills. I wouldn't buy my assessment skills. And he said to me, you wouldn't buy them, Gary, because you don't need to. You do it. That's what you do. And I realized it kind of blew me back in my chair, and I went, oh, that's something special. And that's the experience we have frequently when we work with people, is we help point out to them, this thing that you do that you don't think is any big deal, that's special. That's what defines you, and it's very important. And we want to help you figure out, how do you use that intentionally in your life, because when you do, life's going to feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, definitely. When people start living in their own, like, what comes easy for them, it helps.
It does.
It really helps, if you understand kind of
Yeah.
what feels aligned and what comes easy. It does help, like, living in that area.
Yeah.
And creating in that area. Yeah.
So we talk about people having natural skills. I always have to jump out and say, there's a corollary, which is acquired skills. And the acquired skill, I always like to quote that the latest time I've looked it up, which is not frequently, but is 80% of people dislike what they do for a living. They don't enjoy it. They're on that hamster wheel, if you will. And it is our belief that they don't like what they're doing because what they're doing is dominated by acquired skills. Acquired skills are things you can learn how to do them, but you pay a huge price to learn how to do them, and they wear you out. And so that aligning with your natural skills, as we've just been saying, gets you and put you in a place where the satisfaction in doing them is greater than the satisfaction that comes from getting them finished, which is what happens with acquired skills. I don't like doing this, but I feel good when I'm done with it, as opposed to, I love doing this.
Right. So
Yeah.
And then, like, since we're talking about like the workforce and like people who are using their skills and stuff, how do you think like all this is like going to pan out with like this artificial intelligence that's going on and chat GPT? Because I feel like a lot of people who are really like centered in like the technical background or that technology area might be feeling like a little nervous, like, what's going to happen because this is my skill set, is to do these things, and this is maybe something that I'm passionate about or naturally able to do, where I'll be honest, like, I have no desire to write a book. That's like that. Like, I've written ebooks, I've done like little small things, and for me it was like torturous. I was like, I applaud everybody who's written a book. I will have a podcast.
I've been around long enough that I remember the writing, when we all panicked over
but for people who
laptops.
maybe are seeing the
there
shift
was
with
a huge
artificial
change
intelligence,
with, because it was going to be different,
how do you think
and
that's going to kind of
word
play out
processors
with a
came
lot of
about,
the
and suddenly
workforce
we weren't
here
going to need secretarial pools, and
around?
so as technology has advanced, and it leapfrogs every few years, and it's closer and closer together now. It seems to me that the technology does eliminate some things and always creates needs for new things that we don't know about yet.
Right.
Because part of it is, as we adapt that technology, we find that we need some other thing to augment it that we weren't unaware of at the time. So I think change is tough. Okay? Anybody who tells you change is not tough is just pretending. Change is a natural part of life. I mean, we change every day. Just time happening is change. But these kinds of things, these types of changes are even more difficult because the clear picture of what's going to be the total effect isn't seen. So there's lots of ambiguity and place for worry, right? And so I would say worry can be constructive when it's helping you to find things you want to put in place in the event of something. But worry can be very destructive when you're just spinning in a hamster wheel of worry because there's not enough information for you to take any kind of action. So I'd say we're at the precipice. I know AI is really getting full steam now, but we really are early days for where it's going to be applied and how it's going to be applied. And it's scary because we don't have all the facts yet. So I think it's going to have a significant impact on us. I'm hoping people will feel comfortable about what they do and know that opportunities will, unknown, yet undefined opportunities are going to pop up because of AI. We just don't know what they are yet.
This is also, Catherine, this is also a great example of to apply some of the things I was mentioning earlier, which is that, and there's a couple of threads here. The first one is that let's take a tech job. It's what the skills are not necessarily what the person is overtly doing day to day. It's something it's something beneath that. So that if I am a coder, it's the skill is not the coding, although that is a skill, but the deep skill, the perceptual skill, is the ability to understand and analyze a problem and to break it down into distinct and subsequent parts. Well, the coding job may go away, but my skill at seeing, analyzing a problem and to seeing what kind of steps can be used to solve it doesn't. So how do I now take those skills and apply them in a new way, even though coding may have been taken over by ChatGPT or some other AI function? Okay. The other way I would say it too is that if you become into a certain role because of your acquired skills, well then this is going to be rough for you, because if AI takes over something that you've learned to do through your acquired skills, well, you don't know what the skills are to take with you to transfer into something new, and that's going to be an issue for people. And so they need to be starting to figure out what their natural skills are.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, like, everybody's about chat GPT and AI and artificial intelligence and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it will possibly, because it's like, oh, it's going to eliminate everybody's job. But I think there might be room, definitely there's going to be room where people are going to be able to, like, open up, like you would say, unlock their perception of what their natural skills are and what it is that they can create that isn't feeling so mundane and so, like, just robotic. Like, if the robots can do the robotic work, let them. And it will give us more area to enhance on other of our natural skills.
Sure. It's always been, and that's always what's happened when we've had a new technology change. Everyone seems to think that AI is going to be somehow different. Maybe it will. We can't, we won't know until as we move forward through it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And it makes me think of like almost like the spell check, like the spell check when you're writing something. That spell check, back before there was spell check, I would have to ask my mom, like, how do you spell this? Have to look it up in the dictionary, in Webster, like, am I writing this right? Is this the right meaning? And now I have something that I can just right click and it will show me, no, you're spelling this completely wrong,
Yeah.
So I do think that there's going to be, new possibilities where people can actually enhance their skills that they never even really thought they had, possibly. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting.
I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I have grandchildren who are in the third, fourth, and fifth grade area, and realizing that they're not teaching them how to write in what we call cursive writing anymore.
Yeah.
And they don't, and we go, oh my God, what are they going to do? And we realize that when you look at it, it's a skill that we think is necessary, but it's not necessary or important in the world that they're living in. And I think that's part of what's also going on is that the skills that we took that we feel we had to do a certain way get taken over by technology, and we discover, oh, that's kind of nice. I can put my brain power or my focus or my energy into something else that I just that will be more beneficial for me long run.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So,
yeah. Would you say that you and Lynda-Ross have different perspectives on a lot of things?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We definitely have different perceptual styles. You were talking to us earlier about our our sun signs. Well, and why did we get together? Well, we see it more. We got together because of our perceptual styles and how our perceptual styles work together. Because the six perceptual styles arrange themselves in a theoretical arrangement, and Lynda-Ross and I are neighbor styles, and so that we find we see things just a little bit differently than each other, but also similarly enough that we work very well together.
Their best purview.
Lynda-Ross, do you want to say more about that?
And so in a circle, every style has another style on either side, so they've got two neighbors. They've got a style directly across from them, so they've got an opposite. And then they have two styles that aren't neighbors and aren't opposite, so we call those one-off. And there's very distinct experiences you have when you're dealing with someone, interacting with someone who's a neighbor versus who's an opposite, versus a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, opposites attract and opposites repel, right? So usually it's real obvious to you when you're dealing with someone who is an opposite, your opposite style, because it's obvious that they're thinking in an opposite way than you are, or that they're thinking in a totally different way. And that can be very exciting. It's like the style that's opposite mine, those people tend to be incredibly good at research, incredibly good at research. I really admire that. I don't necessarily have the patience to do it. I mean, I can, but like you said about writing a book, it's like I got to sit down, gear myself up to do it, and I do it, and I'm glad when I'm done. And so it's really nice when they do all that research. People with my style tend to be fairly decisive. You know, they make quick decisions, and they, make them all day long, and they change their minds all day long. So that can be very attractive to someone who spends a lot of time doing research before making a decision. So in the beginning, it can be great. You can go like, wow, this is so cool. And then after a while, the person who's opposite me is going to say, could you please just do your research before you decide something? And I'm going to think about that person, could you please just make a decision before 2 weeks of research is done? So the things that we get attracted to start to push our buttons, and it's not because the other person is doing anything any differently, it's because they're not doing it our way, right? And we're not doing it their way. So there's different kinds of things, but with neighbors, like Gary and I have 2 different styles, but they're neighbors, so we tend to see some things the same way at a high level. And then if you were going to ask us how we would go about doing it, we would take 2 different paths in the how. But we have an agreement. I mean, we're understanding the same high level. So it makes it entertaining.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the 2 different styles, sometimes if they're neighbors, what if they're opposing each other? They like attract more to each other? Like they have a different alignment, or?
Well, the opposite styles, as Lynda-Ross was saying, they will be attracted to each other because the opposite style does well what I don't do. My opposite does well what I don't do, and that's attractive. But after a while, I don't like doing it, so I get tired of them doing it, and so there's that kind of tension between the 2 of us. Yeah.
Right. And of course,
Right.
Can.
Yeah. Yeah, because definitely with like with at jobs or like with relationships, you could definitely see how if somebody has a totally different perspective than you do, it might not be like the best relationship. Like it would probably totally not work out. And then also I would think, but in some ways it would also help you maybe expand some of your own perspective.
Very good, Catherine. Absolutely. Well, the thing we talked about is the first thing you want to do is to understand your own perceptual style and to claim the strengths that come with it. But that's not enough. That's not the end. The next step is to begin to understand the other 5 perspectives and realize that they're valid ways of seeing the world.
Exactly.
And so that you want to expand your capacity not to see the way they see the world, but to accept and understand that they have a different and valid way of seeing the world.
Yeah, to see other people's perspectives as well.
They're not wrong.
Right. They're just not yours.
Just not mine.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but they're not wrong. Yeah,
it's just different. Yeah,
definitely. Well, let me know 3 tips. If each one of you guys could give me 3 tips you would tell somebody to understanding their perspective, their perceptional style.
Well, tip number 1, go read the book.
Yes, that's a good tip, right?
because the book explains the theory. It explains, it talks a little bit about each of the 6 styles, and it doesn't talk about necessarily the skills that accompany each of the 6 styles, but it talks about, the how they relate to each other, the kinds of concepts of neighbors and opposites.
When you're thinking about
but
natural
to get
skills
I guess 3 tips I would give would be: 1, talk to other people about what they see that you do well, because you won't recognize it, and they often will.
That you are really
so that's tip number 1. Let's see.
Lynda-Ross,
you grab one while I think of another one.
Think of a few. Just literally, just take a piece of paper and put 3 or 4 in each column. I really enjoy it while I'm doing it, and I enjoy it when I'm done, or I'm glad when it's done. Those 2 things can both be very high quality. Don't get me wrong. The things you enjoy being done with, you can do with high quality. It's just that it's not fun. You're not enjoying it. When you can put 2 or 3 things in each column, then you can start discerning the difference between something that's fun because it's easy and you enjoy it, or because you're fascinated by it while you're learning it, or you seem to be learning it and absorbing it faster than whoever you're taking the class with, signs that it might be natural for you. And you've had these other things that you've worked to learn, or you know how to do, or you just think, oh dear, it's this time, I need to do that this week. Those are probably acquired skills. Not saying you don't do them well, just there's something that you had to work at. So maybe doing less of those is a good thing if you can get away with it.
Right.
Yeah. So tip number 3 is to notice the people that you look at and you see them doing something, you go, boy, I wish I could do that.
Exactly.
Okay? And that's a great indicator that you're seeing something that's not a natural skill for you. And so you can do 2 things in that point. One is you can begin to see, okay, that's an acquired skill. So what's the opposite of that? Is that something that I like and enjoy doing? And begin to think maybe that's got some value to it.
I love it.
Well,
sure. So Unlock the Power of Your Perception is available on Amazon.
Thank you guys for
it's
coming
an
on
ebook and
Chakras
and
Cusswords. Let everybody know
also
where can they find this
our
book?
website is
how do they purchase it so they can understand and unlock their own perceptual
and
style?
And if you check out the website, you will see that there's actually a free assessment to get a taste of what your perceptual style might be. There's also a more complete assessment that will tell you about your perceptual style and give you an action guide with hundreds of natural skills for your perceptual style. So the book is available on Amazon, and then Gary's showing when you take the full perceptual style assessment, you get an action guide called Celebrate You that's full of all sorts of tips and techniques. And actually, Celebrate You is also available on Amazon, so you can find us there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And it will begin to give you some idea of your actual skills, your natural skills. Celebrate You does. So it's worth the effort to get a copy of that.
Thank
you. Thank you guys so much for being on Chakras and Cusswords. And everybody, please comment, review, and like this podcast, and make sure to share it with a friend so they can learn about their own perceptual style. And everybody, thank you and have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.